The arrival. The day the sky turned red was the day humanity realized it wasn't alone in the universe. Massive ships, each the size of a small country, burst through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to drink in the light. The Galactic Empire had arrived, and with it came the promise of Earth's subjugation. Panic erupted across the globe. World leaders scrambled to mount a defense, but their efforts were as futile as throwing pebbles at a tsunami. The Empire's technology was centuries, if not millennia, beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Laser cannons mounted on the alien ships cut through Earth's most advanced fighter jets like they were made of paper. Nuclear missiles, humanity's last resort, were swatted out of the sky by force fields that rippled with strange purple energy. As major cities fell one by one, the Empire's ground forces began to land. They were led by the Warlords, 12 beings of immense power and cruelty. Each warlord was a seasoned conqueror, having brought hundreds of alien worlds to heel in the name of the Empire. They viewed Earth as nothing more than an insignificant speck, a minor addition to their ever-expanding domain. The first warlord to set foot on Earth's soil was Zarketh the Annihilator. Standing 3 meters tall, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed with an eerie red light, Zarketh was a sight that would haunt the nightmares of those fortunate enough to survive the initial invasion. He strode through the ruins of what was once New York City, his massive, clawed feet leaving imprints in the concrete. Pathetic, Zarketh growled, his voice a rumble that seemed to shake the very air. I expected more of a challenge from the species that calls itself humanity. As if in answer to his taunt, a lone police officer, bleeding and battered, raised his pistol and fired. The bullet pinged harmlessly off Zarketh's armor, and the warlord's laughter echoed through the desolate streets. With a casual flick of his wrist, Zarketh activated a device on his gauntlet. A beam of sickly green energy lashed out, vaporizing the officer where he stood. Let that be a lesson, Zarketh announced to the cowering humans hiding in the rubble. Resistance is not only futile, it is suicide. As the invasion progressed, Earth's remaining military forces retreated to hidden bunkers and remote locations. The planet's governments, those that still existed, went dark. For all intents and purposes, the war was over before it had truly begun. The Empire had won. Or so they thought. In a small town in the American Midwest, far from the chaos of the major cities, a man sat in a dimly lit bar, nursing a glass of whiskey. His weathered face was half hidden by the brim of a battered cowboy hat, and his eyes, sharp and alert despite the alcohol, scanned the fuzzy images on the old television mounted in the corner. The bartender, a portly man with thinning hair, shook his head as he wiped down the counter. "It's the end of the world, Jack. Honest to God, the end of the world." The man called Jack took another sip of his whiskey, savoring the burn. "Maybe," he said, his voice a low drawl. "Or maybe it's just the beginning." As if on cue, the bar's door burst open. A group of alien soldiers, their armor gleaming and their weapons humming with deadly energy, stormed in. Their leader, a brutish creature with mottled green skin, fixed its 4 eyes on the bartender. By decree of Warlord Zarketh, this establishment is now property of the Galactic Empire. The alien growled in broken English. "Surrender or be terminated." The bartender raised his hands, trembling. "Please, we don't want any trouble. Take whatever you want." Jack, however, didn't move. He simply turned on his bar stool, facing the aliens with an expression of calm disinterest. The alien leader noticed and stomped towards him, energy rifle raised. "You, human, on your knees." Jack's hand moved faster than the eye could follow. There was a sharp crack, like thunder in the confined space of the bar, and the alien leader's head exploded in a spray of purple gore. Before the other aliens could react, 2 more shots rang out, and 2 more bodies hit the floor. The remaining aliens opened fire, their energy weapons scorching the bar and shattering bottles. But Jack was already moving, rolling behind an overturned table. His revolver barked twice more, and the last two aliens fell. In the sudden silence, broken only by the tinkle of falling glass, Jack stood up. He calmly reloaded his revolver, an ancient Colt single-action army that looked like it belonged in a museum rather than a battlefield. The bartender stared at Jack in shock. "Who? What are you?" Jack holstered his weapon and adjusted his hat. "Just a man who's good with a gun," he said. "And it looks like that's exactly what Earth needs right now." As he strode out of the bar and into the chaos of a world under siege, Jack knew that the real fight was just beginning. The Galactic Empire had sent its warlords to conquer Earth, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Sometimes, one determined human could be more dangerous than an entire alien armada. The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of smoke and the distant sound of alien weaponry. Jack's eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon. Somewhere out there, the warlords were celebrating their easy victory. They had no idea that their greatest challenge was about to begin. Jack checked his revolver one last time and set off down the dusty road. The Gunslinger had work to do. The resistance begins. As dawn broke over the ravaged landscape of what was once the American heartland, Jack moved like a ghost through the shadows. The Galactic Empire's invasion had transformed familiar towns and cities into alien outposts, their streets patrolled by hulking creatures in high-tech armor. But where others saw hopelessness, Jack saw opportunity. His first target was a small Imperial command post, set up in what used to be a high school gymnasium. As he approached, he could hear the guttural voices of alien soldiers, their harsh language a reminder of how far Earth had fallen in just a few short weeks. Jack's hand hovered near his revolver, the old weapon a stark contrast to the energy rifles and plasma cannons wielded by the invaders. But in his hands, that antique firearm was deadlier than any alien tech. With a deep breath, Jack stepped into view. The aliens, caught off guard by his boldness, hesitated for a crucial second. It was all the time he needed. 6 shots rang out in rapid succession, each finding its mark with unerring accuracy. 6 alien soldiers fell, purple blood pooling beneath their armored bodies. Before the echo of the last shot had faded, Jack was already reloading, his movements fluid and practiced. As alarms blared and reinforcements rushed in, Jack was already gone, melting back into the ruins of the town. But he left something behind, a spark of hope in the eyes of the human prisoners he'd just freed. Word of the Gunslinger's exploits spread like wildfire. At first, the stories were whispered in hidden bunkers and refugee camps, tales of a lone human who could take down entire squads of alien soldiers with nothing but an old 6-shooter. Many dismissed them as desperate fantasy, a story concocted to keep spirits up in dark times. But as Jack continued his one-man war against the Empire, the stories grew too numerous to ignore. Security footage captured glimpses of him in action, a blur of motion, the flash of gunfire, and then nothing but alien bodies left in his wake. The Empire's propaganda machine tried to downplay these incidents, but they couldn't hide the truth forever. In a secret war room deep beneath the ruins of London, Warlord Kragnoth, the Decimator, snarled in frustration. His massive fist slammed down on the holographic display, causing the image to flicker. "How is this possible?" he roared, his voice shaking dust from the ceiling. "How can one human cause so much trouble?" His subordinates cowered before him, none willing to meet his furious gaze. Finally, a brave lieutenant spoke up. "My lord, we believe this human possesses some sort of special abilities. Our sensors can barely track him, and when they do, his vital signs are unusual." Kragnoth's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "His reflexes are off the charts, my lord, and his accuracy with that primitive weapon. It defies our understanding of human capabilities." The warlord pondered this for a moment, his claw-like fingers drumming on the arm of his throne. "Perhaps," he mused, "we have underestimated these humans. This gunslinger could prove to be a worthy hunt." As the Empire's focus shifted to tracking down this unexpected threat, Jack's actions were having an even greater impact than he realized. In hidden corners of the globe, humans began to whisper his name like a prayer. The Gunslinger became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that humanity wasn't beaten yet. In a makeshift hospital in the Australian outback, a young doctor named Sarah Chen tended to the wounded. As she changed the bandages of a resistance fighter, she heard the familiar whispers. "Did you hear? The Gunslinger took out another alien convoy near Alice Springs. They say he didn't miss a single shot." Sarah had heard the stories, of course. But unlike many, she didn't dismiss them as mere legend. She had seen the results of the Gunslinger's work firsthand: freed prisoners, destroyed alien tech, and most importantly, hope in the eyes of those who had all but given up. As she finished her rounds, Sarah made a decision. It was time to do more than just patch up the wounded. The resistance needed to grow, to organize, and to strike back. And the Gunslinger, whoever he was, had shown them it was possible. Meanwhile, in the dense jungles of South America, another figure watched the unfolding events with great interest. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, once one of the world's leading experts in advanced weaponry, had gone into hiding when the invasion began. Now, as reports of the Gunslinger's exploits reached her hidden lab, she saw an opportunity. If one man with an antique weapon can do this much damage, she mused to herself, imagine what an organized resistance could do with the right tools. Her fingers flew over holographic keyboards as she accessed long-dormant projects. Experimental weapons designed to combat threats that, until recently, had existed only in theory. As the schematics for impossible guns and reality-bending devices filled her screens, Elena allowed herself a grim smile. "Hold on, Gunslinger," she whispered. "Help is coming." Back in North America, Jack continued his relentless campaign against the Empire. Each victory, no matter how small, chipped away at the invaders' aura of invincibility. But as he crouched in the ruins of a bombed-out church, watching an alien patrol pass by, he knew the truth. He was just one man, and the Empire was vast. As if sensing his thoughts, a voice crackled to life in his ear. The small communication device he'd stolen from an alien officer weeks ago had been silent until now. "Gunslinger," the voice said, distorted but unmistakably human. "You're not alone anymore. The resistance is rising. When you're ready, we'll be waiting." Jack allowed himself a small smile as he checked his revolver. He wasn't a man of many words, but as he stepped out to engage the alien patrol, he had a message for the Empire and for humanity. It was time to take back their world. The firefight that ensued was brief but intense. Jack moved with inhuman speed and precision, each shot finding its mark despite the aliens' advanced armor and shielding technology. As the last invader fell, Jack paused to survey the scene. He knew that this small victory was just the beginning. The Galactic Empire had sent its warlords to conquer Earth, thinking it would be an easy target. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated the human spirit. And now, with the Gunslinger leading the charge and a global resistance forming in the shadows, the real war was about to begin. Jack holstered his smoking revolver and set off towards the horizon. There was work to be done, and a planet to save. The Empire was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the universe isn't a massive warship or an energy cannon. It's a determined human with nothing left to lose. Turning the tide. The scorching sun beat down on the Arizona desert, its heat shimmering off the cracked earth. In the shadow of a massive alien structure, a towering spire of black metal that seemed to devour light, a small group of humans huddled in tense anticipation. Among them was Sarah Chen, the doctor-turned resistance leader, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "Are you sure he'll come?" whispered a nervous young man beside her, clutching a makeshift energy rifle. Sarah nodded, her expression grim but determined. "If there's one thing I've learned about the Gunslinger, it's that he always shows up when we need him most." As if on cue, a lone figure appeared in the distance, walking steadily towards the alien stronghold. Even from afar, There was no mistaking the silhouette. The wide-brimmed hat, the long coat, and the glint of sunlight off an ancient revolver. "It's him," Sarah breathed, a mixture of awe and relief in her voice. "All right, people, you know the plan. Let's show these aliens what happens when you mess with Earth." As Jack approached the perimeter of the alien base, alarms began to blare. Energy barriers flickered to life, and squads of alien soldiers poured out of the structure, their weapons primed and ready. But Jack didn't break his stride. He walked calmly towards the gathered alien forces, his hand hovering near his holster. The aliens, unsure of how to react to this lone human's audacity, hesitated. It was all the opening the resistance needed. From hidden positions around the base, Sarah's team opened fire. Experimental weapons, courtesy of Dr. Elena Rodriguez's genius, tore through the aliens' defenses. Gravity bombs warped space itself, crushing entire squads. Facing rounds ignored energy shields, finding their marks with deadly accuracy. In the chaos that ensued, Jack sprang into action. His revolver barked again and again, each shot dropping an alien soldier. He moved with impossible speed, dodging energy blasts and weaving through the battlefield like a force of nature. Inside the alien spire, Warlord Vexthor, the Annihilator, watched the battle unfold on holographic displays, his face contorted in a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Impossible," he snarled, his clawed hand crushing the arm of his command chair. "How can these primitives possess such weapons?" An aide, trembling in fear, approached. "My lord, we've identified the human known as the Gunslinger among the attackers. Our forces they're falling back." Vexthor's eyes narrowed. "So the legend is real. Prepare my battle suit, if you want something done right." Outside, the tide of battle had definitively turned. The resistance fighters, emboldened by Jack's presence and armed with weapons that could actually hurt the invaders, pressed their advantage. Alien soldiers retreated in disarray, their once impenetrable defenses crumbling. As Sarah led a team into the base itself, hacking alien systems and freeing human prisoners, Jack found himself face to face with a new threat. The ground shook as a massive armored figure emerged from the spire. Warlord Vexthor, encased in a suit of armor that made him tower over even his own soldiers, fixed his gaze on Jack. "So, you're the one they call the Gunslinger," he growled, his voice distorted by external speakers. "I will take great pleasure in crushing you beneath my heel." Jack said nothing. He simply raised his revolver, his eyes cold and focused. The battle that followed was unlike anything Earth had seen before. Vexthor's armor gave him strength and speed to rival Jack's seemingly superhuman abilities. Energy blasts scorched the ground where Jack had stood moments before, while bullets pinged off the Warlord's armor. But Jack wasn't fighting alone anymore. Sarah and her team provided covering fire, their advanced weapons keeping Vexthor off balance. And with each passing moment, Jack learned, adapted, found weaknesses in the aliens' defenses. A well-placed shot shorted out Vexthor's left arm servo. Another cracked his helmet's visor. The Warlord, unused to facing a worthy opponent, began to show signs of frustration and fear. "What are you?" Vexthor roared as another of Jack's bullets found a weak spot in his armor's joints. "How can a primitive human stand against the might of the Empire?" Jack's response was simple and devastating. His last bullet caught Vexthor square in the faceplate, shattering it completely. The Warlord stumbled, then fell, his massive form crashing to the ground with an earth-shaking thud. As the dust settled, Sarah and her team approached cautiously. Jack stood over the fallen Warlord, reloading his revolver with practiced ease. "It's over," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder. We actually did it." Jack nodded, his expression unreadable. "This battle, maybe. But the war's far from over." As if to underscore his point, the sky above them suddenly filled with alien ships. Reinforcements, drawn by the distress call of the fallen base, had arrived. "Everyone, fall back," Sarah shouted, organizing a hasty retreat. We've done what we came to do. Live to fight another day. As the resistance fighters melted away into hidden tunnels and secret passages, Jack stood his ground, buying them time. The aliens, wary now of this seemingly unstoppable human, approached with caution. In hidden bases around the world, the news of the Arizona victory spread like wildfire. Humanity, for the first time since the invasion began, had hope. They had struck a real blow against the Empire, proving that the aliens weren't invincible. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, watching the aftermath via hijacked alien communications, allowed herself a moment of pride. Her weapons had worked even better than she'd hoped, but she knew this was just the beginning. The real work starts now, she murmured, her fingers already dancing over keyboards as she designed the next generation of anti-alien weaponry. In the smoldering ruins of the alien base, Jack finally allowed himself to retreat. But as he disappeared into the desert, he knew that things had changed. The Empire would no longer underestimate humanity. They would bring their full might to bear, determined to crush this unexpected resistance. But humanity was ready. The Gunslinger had shown them the way, had proven that even in the darkest hour, hope could prevail. As Jack walked into the setting sun, his mind was already on the next battle, the next step in reclaiming their world. The Galactic Empire had awakened a sleeping giant, and now, led by a man out of time with an ancient weapon, humanity was ready to take the fight to the stars themselves. The Empire strikes back. The victory in Arizona had been a turning point, but the war was far from over. In the months that followed, the Galactic Empire's response was swift and brutal. The skies of Earth darkened as thousands of new warships entered the atmosphere, their hulls bristling with weapons far more destructive than anything seen in the initial invasion. From his command ship orbiting high above the planet, Grand Warlord Zixcon, the merciless, surveyed the blue world below with cold, calculating eyes. The loss of Warlord Vexthor and an entire command base to a group of primitive humans was an embarrassment he intended to correct permanently. "Begin the Scorched Earth Protocol," Zixcon ordered, his voice devoid of emotion. "If we cannot rule this world, we will render it uninhabitable." On the ground, the effects of this new strategy were immediately apparent. Massive energy beams lanced down from the orbiting fleet, vaporizing entire cities in seconds. Clouds of nanites were released into the atmosphere, designed to poison the air and water. It seemed that the Empire, in its fury, had decided that if Earth wouldn't submit, it wouldn't survive. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the leaders of Earth's fledgling resistance gathered. The mood was grim as they watched real-time footage of the devastation being wrought upon their world. Sarah Chen, her face haggard from weeks of sleepless nights, addressed the group. "We've made progress, but this is beyond anything we've faced before. Dr. Rodriguez, please tell me you have something that can help us." Elena Rodriguez nodded, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "I've been working on something, a weapon that could potentially turn their own technology against them. But it's risky, and we'd need to get it into orbit to have any chance of success." As the assembled leaders debated the merits and dangers of this plan, a familiar figure stepped out of the shadows. Jack, the gunslinger, had been silent throughout the meeting, but now he spoke, his voice cutting through the arguments. "I'll do it," he said simply. "Get me up there, and I'll deliver your weapon." The room fell silent. Everyone knew of Jack's extraordinary abilities, but this seemed like a suicide mission. Sarah was the first to recover. "Jack, it's too dangerous. We need you here, leading the ground resistance. You can't." Jack cut her off with a raised hand. "This is what I'm here for. You all have your parts to play, and this is mine." As preparations for the mission began, Jack found a quiet moment alone. He stared at his revolver, the worn metal gleaming dully in the low light of the bunker. For the first time, he allowed himself to remember. Flashes of memory. A top-secret government project. volunteers subjected to experimental treatments designed to create super soldiers. Jack, the lone survivor, emerging with abilities beyond human limits, but at a terrible cost. The decision to go into hiding, to become a legend rather than a lab rat. He pushed the memories aside. The past didn't matter now, only the mission. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Using a captured alien shuttle and the cloaking technology Dr. Rodriguez had reverse-engineered, Jack would infiltrate Zix Khan's command ship. Once aboard, he would deploy the weapon, a virus designed to turn the Empire's own nanites against them. As Jack prepared to leave, Sarah approached him one last time. "Jack," she said, her voice thick with emotion. We need you to come back. Promise me you'll come back." Jack smiled, a rare sight that transformed his weathered face. "I always do," he said softly, before turning and boarding the shuttle. The journey to the command ship was tense, every moment fraught with the possibility of discovery. But Jack's inhuman reflexes and the shuttle's cloaking device got him through the Empire's defenses. Once aboard, Jack moved like a ghost through the massive ship's corridors. Alien crew members fell silently to his bullets, their bodies hidden to avoid raising alarms. But as he neared the ship's central control room, his luck ran out. An energy blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Grand Warlord Zix Khan stood at the end of the corridor, flanked by elite guards, his own weapon still smoking. "Impressive," Zix Khan sneered. "But futile. Did you really think you, a single human, could defeat the might of the Galactic Empire?" Jack didn't waste breath on a reply. His gun was up and firing in an instant, dropping 2 of the guards before they could react. But Zix Khan was faster than Vexthor had been, his personal shield deflecting Jack's bullets. The battle that ensued was epic in scale, a clash between the Empire's most advanced technology and the limits of enhanced human potential. Jack's speed and accuracy were matched against Zix Khan's shields and energy weapons. The ship's corridors became a war zone, alarms blaring as crew members fled the devastation. But even Jack had his limits. A lucky shot from Zix Khan sent him crashing into a wall, his revolver skittering across the floor. The Grand Warlord loomed over him, energy sword humming with deadly intent. "Any last words, human?" Zix Khan growled, raising his weapon for the killing blow. Jack's hand closed around something in his pocket, the nanite virus. With his last ounce of strength, he smashed the container against Zix Khan's shield. "Yeah," Jack grunted. "Look behind you." The nanites, designed to infiltrate and subvert alien tech, swarmed over Zix Khan's shield. In seconds, they had breached his defenses, turning his own armor against him. The Grand Warlord's screams echoed through the ship as the nanites spread, infecting every piece of alien technology they touched. As Zix Khan fell, Jack struggled to his feet, retrieving his revolver. He had to finish the mission. With the last of his strength, he made his way to the control room and activated the ship-wide dispersal of the nanite virus. Across Earth's orbit, alien ships began to falter and fall. The nanites spread from ship to ship, rendering the mighty armada into little more than drifting hulks. On the ground, the Resistance watched in awe as the sky lit up with falling debris from the alien fleet. Cheers erupted from bunkers and hidden bases around the world. Against all odds, they had won. But as the celebrations began, Sarah Chen's eyes remained fixed on the sky, searching for any sign of a single, small shuttle returning to Earth. "Come on, Jack," she whispered. "You promised." The final showdown. As the remnants of the Galactic Empire's fleet burned up in Earth's atmosphere, a tense silence fell over the Resistance headquarters. Hours had passed since Jack's mission to deploy the nanite virus, but there was no sign of his return. Sarah Chen paced restlessly, her eyes darting between the communications console and the sky visible through the bunker's periscope. "Any word?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, her usually steady voice tinged with worry. Sarah shook her head. "Nothing. But he's out there. He has to be." Suddenly, alarms blared to life. A single ship, unlike any they'd seen before, was descending rapidly towards Earth. It was neither human nor of the Empire's design. "What is that?" someone gasped. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened as she studied the readings. It's incredible. The technology is beyond anything we've encountered. It's as if... As if what? Sarah demanded. As if someone combined our technology with the Empire's, Rodriguez finished, her voice filled with awe. The strange ship landed just outside the bunker. As the resistance fighters readied their weapons, the ship's hatch opened with a hiss of escaping air. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the setting sun. "Hold your fire," Sarah shouted, recognizing the familiar outline of a wide-brimmed hat. Jack strode towards them, but he wasn't alone. Floating beside him was a shimmering, translucent being of pure energy. "Jack?" Sarah breathed, relief and confusion mooring in her voice. "What? Who is that?" The gunslinger's face was grim as he approached. "This," he said, gesturing to the energy being, "is the true face of our enemy and our potential salvation." The being spoke, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I am Zixcon, or what remains of him. Your nanite virus did more than destroy our technology. It evolved us." A stunned silence fell over the group. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to recover. "Evolved? How?" "The nanites merged with our biological forms," Zixcon explained. "We have become beings of pure energy and thought. We see now the error of our ways, the futility of conquest." Jack's hand rested on his revolver. A warning. "They want to make amends," he said. "But I told them that's not my decision to make. It's all of ours." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes hard. "Amends? After all the destruction you've caused, all the lives you've taken?" Zixcon's form rippled, a gesture that might have been interpreted as remorse. "We cannot undo what has been done, but we can offer you the knowledge and technology to rebuild, to take your rightful place among the stars." A heated debate erupted among the resistance leaders. Some argued for accepting the offer, seeing it as a chance to leap forward technologically. Others called for the complete destruction of the transformed empire, unwilling to trust their former enemies. Through it all, Jack remained silent, his eyes never leaving Zixcon. Finally, as the arguments reached a fever pitch, he spoke. "We accept your offer," he said, his quiet words cutting through the chaos. "But on our terms, you'll help us rebuild, share your knowledge. But Earth remains free under its own rule." Zixcon's form pulsed in what seemed to be agreement. "It shall be as you say, Gunslinger. We owe you and your people a debt that can never truly be repaid." As the implications of this new alliance sank in, Sarah approached Jack. "How can we trust them?" she whispered. Jack's hand moved from his revolver to Sarah's shoulder, a rare gesture of comfort. "We can't, not completely. That's why we'll stay vigilant, why the world will still need defenders." In the days that followed, the true scale of what had happened became clear. The transformed empire shared technologies beyond humanity's wildest dreams. Devastated cities were rebuilt in weeks, the poisoned earth and waters were cleansed, and humanity began to look to the stars not with fear, but with hope and curiosity. Through it all, Jack watched from the shadows. The legend of the Gunslinger grew, whispered among the stars as humanity took its first steps into the galactic community. But few ever saw the man himself. Years later, on a cliff overlooking a gleaming metropolis that seamlessly blended human and alien architecture, Sarah found him. Jack stood silently, his revolver still at his side, watching the sun set on a new era. "Will you ever holster that gun for good?" Sarah asked, a sad smile on her face. Jack turned to her, the ghost of a smile on his weathered face. "Maybe someday. But not yet. The universe is vast, and there are always those who will threaten peace." As if on cue, a distant alarm sounded. A new threat, a new adventure calling. Jack tipped his hat to Sarah. "Duty calls," he said simply. As he walked away, his figure silhouetted against the setting sun, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The Galactic Empire had sent its warlords to conquer Earth, but Earth had sent a gunslinger, and in doing so had not only saved itself but changed the very face of the galaxy. The legend of the gunslinger would live on, a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes come from the most unexpected places, and that even in the darkest of times, hope and humanity would always find a way to persevere.